do. Come on. There we go.
Yeah, I'm reading Gorsuch's book right now. I'm over halfway through it finally. It's Republic if you can keep it.
Oh yeah,
I'll send you the notes on it. I'm taking notes on it too. All these books I read. Did I send you the? Did I send you my notes for the commentaries on the Constitution by Sir Tucker, George Tucker?
yeah, yeah. I think so. Is that the? That's what you sent me.
Yeah, and then
Wait,
I don't know if then I got Amy Coney Barrett's book too that I read. I took notes on it too, and because
yeah,
it's pretty good. And hers was the learning the law.
yeah. We're live right now. Just um.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, so like, here's my thing though. Is like I like reading because I've had a few books like from like the Supreme Court justices, but when I read what they write in like modern day constitutional law, and I go back and I start reading like how it's supposed to work, and then older justices, and then how like Marshall and other justices like they pretty much usurped power themselves as well and put themselves in a position to be able to judge like states and uh, uh,
right.
uh,
Well, yeah,
politics. Like originally, that was not the plan. I mean, if you read like Cox, Tench Cox, he's one of the early like Federalists. He wrote like so the Federalist Papers that we know of were not very influential on the Constitution. It was written uh, quite a bit after, and it was mostly known in New York. It didn't become popular till later. But Tench Cox's writings, he wrote a lot on like he wrote essays on like what powers the states will retain, what powers the government will take, and then he also about the limitations of the government and like in the roles that they're like his papers were the original Federalist papers. Like it had much more impact on the ratification debates uh, than the Federalist papers.
papers
But
themselves.
uh, but yeah, the more I read, the more I realize like like I have that struggle too. Like, well, if the Supreme Court, if Illinois wants to do like some kind of gun control thing that's unconstitutional. How like who's gonna stop them, right? Like, but I mean, to the early founders, uh, I mean, I don't know how they would have tackled that, but to the early founders, the states themselves were more sovereign. So like, they didn't want a federal religion, but they didn't care if states had like a state religion. Like that was not a
Right.
issue. Um,
Well, you got to remember too that when every state became part of the union, they had to agree to the federal constitution, right? So they had to
yeah,
say, "Hey, look, we want to be part of the union," and they're like, "Okay, well, here's the federal constitution, so you got to agree to these, amendments and
yeah.
Bill of Rights,
Well,
and so
the
before
pushback on
you can
that is
escape."
a lot of the historians they write like the federal constitution primarily, well, especially was when it was after when it first came about, because now there's been changes to it where that do tie the states to the federal constitution. They have the same rule, but before that, the constitution was mainly a limitation on um, federal power only, and that the
Right.
states were considered sovereign countries. Even like when you look at how the founders and stuff, other than Washington, because that was the real debate. It was not Federalists and Anti-Federalists, because the Anti-Federalists were more Federalist than the actual Federalists. The Federalists were nationalists, and that what they were trying to do was unify and make a singular country or more consolidated country, and but that was one of the things that kept ratification from happening was, or that was a threat because everybody was worried about how it would affect state sovereignty. So, but like in there back in like Jefferson's day, when he was like the states were sovereign, they had states' rights. Like Jefferson was a big advocate for states' rights, and he battled the courts like. 'Cause I think I think it's like John Adams. The court was pretty powerful under him, and it was stacked with Federalists because the first Supreme Court, one of the qualifications was you had to be a Federalist. You couldn't have been an anti-Federalist. So in order to be on the first Supreme Court, you had to have been on their side. So, um, like, yeah, it's a different world now. Uh, and it states like like the Senate used to be picked by the state.
The
Like,
states. Yeah.
yeah, like so they've done a lot to reduce state
Yeah, yeah. Tell
power.
me about it, dude. We're dumb. Well, then you got the 10th Amendment. The power is not designated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. And I mean, when they wrote that in, they put that in there. Madison put that in there for that reason. So, I
Yeah,
mean, and they already had, the 13 colonies, so they already had their state constitutions written before this even, the federal constitution was
yeah,
written. So, but
and the federal
but you think about it,
constitution.
man, they made all that. They
I'm
made
sorry.
all that work.
Yeah,
I mean, they didn't all agree, but they did, all the time. But they made it work.
they
It's
made
an
it work
imperfect
for
union.
sure. Yeah, uh, but like, yeah, if you look at how so the things that the government does today, like the founders and the other generation never would have put up with. Like if even like and that's what my book on the income tax deal, right? That's what he writes about. Like he leading up to that point, he said they had tried several times to do something like it, but often like the people themselves would just say no to the point where they were like they'd be ready to overthrow like their local government or whoever was pushing it. Like they were ready to take up arms and throw down, and that's why
Yeah.
they always had to back off. But like today,
That's because you think about it. Back at there's just people took their constitutional responsibility serious, right? I mean, you
yeah,
think about all those years ago. Because I look at the way things were back in the 1800s, the early 1800s, right after everything was ratified and everything, and I'm like, man, those people. I mean, they didn't have their phones and stuff to hang out and kill their
yeah,
time. So public's what was going on in the public square was very important to them. So
yeah.
everything that happened, everybody knew about, right? So when someone said, "Hey, taxes are going up," I mean, like you guys are up over in Fort Wayne, right? Aren't they talking about hitting your wheel tax or something? I mean, that's what they're doing here in Coscasso County.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, like,
And,
cause there's always so like I haven't been following as much. I've been seeing like some of the Supreme Court stuff like that, but I've been reading more about like I haven't been following the local politics as close as I should right now because I'm trying to learn all this stuff for to run. Like that's a lot of stuff. Um,
yep, yep, it
and
takes
so
years.
yeah, and so like I'm like and it's like I started early, but it really wasn't early. Like uh, it's the amount of stuff that I have to learn and get together before next year's which is coming fast. Like these months are flying by. Um, yeah, but like I'm paying attention. Like so, but I can't really talk about it right now until I get the guy on. So that way, But uh, talking to a guy, he knows a lot of the local stuff because the mayor has really pissed this guy off like a lot. And so like he knows.
Well, who's your guys' mayor? What's her name?
Uh,
I
Sharon
can't remember.
Tucker. I think it's Sharon.
Yes, yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's Sharon.
I think so. I think
She
you're
used
right.
to be city council.
Yep. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised they chose. She got picked. Yeah, that was a yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's an obvious of why, and I get it now because some of the talkers of people like I get why they would choose a black female, but like we tried. Oh, we tried to get her on once, and she said, my friend Ron, that was back when we still had Shelby Cass. And I mean, we still have Shelby Cass, but like we're in this spot. We're about to have another one. We're about to start putting them back together. But we tried to have her on, and she said, uh, "Well, this is what my friend told me." Like, because he emailed her. At first, they were like, "Yeah," and then like a few days later, like they just never responded again, or either said no or something. And we get that a lot. Like
hmm.
Rainwater, which I thought for sure Rainwater would come on because he was like, yeah, he sounded excited about it, and then I think it was his campaign manager that was like, no, we got stuff to do or whatever, and they had to cancel, and then they're like, well, we'll come on after election, but I'm like, at that point it's too late because like I like to get to know people if I'm gonna vote for you, and that actually was one of the things that I didn't vote for him for, simply because they told us yes and then backed out of it. Like, don't say it. You should have said maybe, or let us look at our schedule.
Right. Yeah.
But don't tell us yeah and
They
then
probably know that you didn't have a huge following, so they're just like,
yeah,
it's not worth our time.
which is okay. Like, uh, but like I use this. I interview like a lot of people see these like when I make the clips. More people see the clips and stuff than they see the actual interviews. And then when I post it on YouTube and stuff, on the I attach the uh, the videos to the clips and
Video.
stuff. Yeah, so but people love to comment on the clips. Like they'll watch, which is a sign of the times, is they'll watch a 30-second or a 28-second clip and then come up with this whole argument of why you're dumb, and then like they'll make this argument. I'm like, well, that's not what we're talking about in the clip. Like, like it's not even on the topic. If you go watch the video, like it's a 30-second clip. Like, stop making a whole ideology out of 30 seconds, right? So,
right, yeah. You gotta watch the whole thing, people.
yeah, but but no, I like just from talking from the few politicians, like they're so fake. Like especially like ones that have been in like the like doing it for a long time. Like they're carrying guns, talking about guns when they're not really pro gun. You know what I mean? Like, and then you ask them about it, and they make up this story that sounds ridiculous about. I'm not throwing him on this, but uh, but like it happens all the time. Like, if you don't shoot guns, don't just say you don't shoot guns. If you're not really a pro gun person, like say you're not really. You may not be anti-gun, but
Right.
if you're not a gun person, don't pretend like you are. Just because
I
you
tell you
strap
what,
one on your
dude,
hip.
too, you got to remember too, because I don't know why when I was running for office, I mean, I was inexperienced as far as like, you know, I try to kind of fit in, with what the other candidates were doing, and instead
Yeah,
of just being who Mike is, who I am. But
yeah,
people are always like, "Hey, hey Joshua, what's your stance on the Second Amendment?" And nowadays I'd be like, "Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What's my stance on the Second Amendment?" Like,
yeah,
like if I get elected, I gotta swear to uphold this book or this Constitution thing, right? So
yeah,
is there a stance on it, or is there an option for me to take a stance on it, or do I mean, people, that's a lot of people are like,
yeah,
what's your stance on abortion? I'm like, have you read the Indiana State Constitution? No. Okay, so if you would read it, you would know that I don't get, if I'm a servant, if I'm serving you, I don't get a choice of where I sit over here or I think over here, because I
yeah,
have to follow what it says. So there is no stance that I take. I mean, sure, I'm, obviously pro life, but what I'm getting at is that I don't have a choice. I have to be pro life. If I want to serve the people of the state of Indiana, I have to be pro life,
yeah.
and regardless of what my personal feelings are or not.
Or change it. Like that's my thing. Is people,
Yeah.
everybody's like, they're like, oh well, or like war powers is a good thing or a good example because everyone argues for like why this is which is funny because under Biden they were arguing for why it wasn't constitutional. Now that it's Trump, everyone's arguing for why it is constitutional, and it's like, and then they're talking about Congress will never, because they don't like it that the war powers actually sit in Congress and they're the
Right.
final say. They're the only say whether we can go to
Right.
war or but uh, no, but like, well, Congress will never make up their minds, and they'll fight, and it'll take so long. And then you read the founders, and they're like, yeah, we put it in Congress because it'll take forever. If we go to war,
Right.
we want to make sure. And everyone else is like, well, it'll take forever. It's just got to go now. And I'm like, well, if you think the president should have the ability to start wars, change the Constitution. And then everybody's like, oh, well, I don't, you shouldn't. Like, I'm like, well, then shut up. Change the
Right,
like, stop doing illegal stuff because that's if I break the law, I go to jail.
right.
If they break the law, it seems like as long as they can make it seem legal, they're okay.
Well, you have to ask them first. Have they read the Constitution? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And they'll probably tell you they may have, but they don't remember what it says.
yeah. Well, they
And
they go
they,
off a current opinion. Like you can't, like that's the
right,
one thing you can't go off a current constitutional opinion or how it's working today, because
yeah, like,
yeah,
yeah.
that's how they skirt it. Because
Yeah,
they've used the courts, they've used different things to make what they do that's unconstitutional look constitutional. The Supreme Court has unconstitutional rulings. The legislature passes unconstitutional laws. The president overreaches his power, usurps power
right,
as well, and like just because they do it doesn't make it all
right,
of a sudden legal. Like that's they
right.
have this whole system legalizing it. So you
Correct.
have to
Yeah,
know the Constitution. The founders said it was up to us at the end of the day to hold them accountable because parchment paper
yeah,
doesn't, it doesn't have armies or
yeah, yeah. It doesn't enforce anything. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's what there's a God, who said that? I can't remember who said it. I think it was maybe St. George Tucker, but he said constitutions are utterly worthless to restrain the tyrannies of government if it's known that the people, won't um, do their duty to keep them within the constitutional constraints. So,
yeah,
and it's the, I mean, that's why the whole "we the people." I mean, the "we the people." I mean, like,
yeah,
where does that come from? Of course, I mean, what does "we the people" mean? That means, like, dude, we are government's, master. Like, there's two types of governments, too. You've got, the governments who own their people, and then you
yeah,
got people who own their government. And
yeah,
right now, if you ask me, dude, we're backwards. The government owns its people, and
yeah,
we're just kind of like, oh, I'm too busy. I want it to change, but I want to stay comfortable, so I'll let somebody else do it. And I'm like,
yeah,
man, like you said, we could end, it's the income tax tomorrow, you know,
yeah.
but the people are just
Well, they were like, well, how will the
we're too
roads? I like
comfortable.
my roads being fixed. I'm like, well, you do know that if the government would like look at all the
Right,
apartments they're building and stuff like that, like that's not the government's job. It's
right,
not to build apartments. Like, and if they have to build it, that means that they've made some kind of that they've legislated somehow that's stopping
right,
regular people from being able in regular companies from being able to build
right,
houses. So if they
yeah,
have to fit if there's a housing shortage and the government's the one like, oh, we're going to be the ones to fix it, that means that they created the problem in the first place, most likely.
yeah. Government, the whole purpose of government, and it's not my words; it's the words of the constitutions. The state and the federal constitution. It says that it's to protect and it's to protect the people and their peace, safety, and well-being. And
Yeah,
guess who gets to this? I think I've said it before, and we're the ones who get to decide what that is, not
yeah,
them. Hey, can you please tell me what my peace, safety, and well-being is? You know what I
yeah,
mean? I mean, how absurd is that? So it's just the thinking of people. But again, everybody's too busy. They're
well, it's we've been. Well, I mean, we've been trained into this. Like, I mean, from our school, like like if you look at the education, the way the school systems and stuff like that, what they focus on, they don't even like you. Like I have yet to see anyone quote me something from Washington or from Thomas Jefferson or Tench
yeah,
from any kid in school
Adams.
will even talk about it. Like they know more about like social justice stuff than I mean, 'cause that's pretty much what the school teaches than they do about their own like the um, than American history and
Right.
and for a lot
They're
of black
right.
people they're taught that this isn't really your history outside of slavery. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like there's like blacks have played a bigger role in America than slavery. Like there's more to
Right.
it than that. Like there's a lot of great actual heroes in America and who loved America.
Right.
Um, yeah, and like
Yeah, we're the only country where people come here and they don't want to leave. They hate the place, but they won't leave. You know what I mean?
yeah, Yeah,
Okay. Hey,
they
where
hate it,
would
but they
you
don't
like to
even know
go?
why they hate it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but we wanted to touch on some of the new SCOTUS stuff.
Yeah. So we were. So I was talking to you about that one. I'm looking at it right here. It's Michael Pung. It's the family, who owned the house and versus Isabella County in up in Michigan. So they
Yeah,
they had their house and they owed like $2,200 in back property taxes. Right? I forget how many years they lived in that house. It was like 20 some years, I think. It was a long time. It was around 20 years. And then of course their house was worth about $200,000 when the county took the house over $2,200 of back taxes. So they kicked them out of their house, and then they sold their house for like 80 grand, $79,000, $78,000. Stole their home from them, took the 2 grand that they owed the county, and then the guy who bought the house flipped the house for almost $200,000. So finally, at least the Supreme Court said, "Hey, yeah, you," because the county did not want to pay him. They're like, "Hey, we lived in this house for this long." They wanted the full amount, right, minus
yeah,
the $2,000, and but they ended up deciding that, hey, look, the county has to pay them $76,000, which is what the county sold the house for, and
yeah.
so they got some money back from the house. But can you believe that crap? And then
Uh,
there's that quote that uh, I was telling you that government does not exist to protect your property. Property does not exist to support the government. And
yeah,
so the government exists to protect your property. Government does not exist to
yeah,
property does not yeah
yeah,
property does not exist to support the government. Sorry.
yeah,
And that was from Justice Thomas, and
yeah.
that's so true, and
It
so
is.
that is applicable to today.
It's a beautiful, and you look through history, and often the government has sided with large corporations, or not even like, oh my gosh, the New Deal, where it basically gave the leaders of each industry the right to make the rules for their own industry, which then solidified them. They solidified them as the leaders in in their industries because they made rules that other companies could not afford. So they basically wiped out a
Right.
good amount of competition. But
Yep.
uh, if you look at it all like through history, the government often sides with the corporations or of course itself, and it runs over the little guy, and that's what it's been like. But like as we get closer to like in this time, and as we get closer this time, you see people becoming more and more. They allow it. Like we are not like our ancestors. The more I read history, I realize that the reason why we're in a slavery state is because we are not like our ancestors. The ones that the 13 colonies, and then they started pushing west, and they were dealing with Native Americans and all this other stuff. They were pretty independent people. Um, and I mean, we say
Right.
independent, but they also work together because you don't do all that stuff on your own. You have to have help in order to survive, and that's how towns and stuff are established. But and then I guess you lose that over time as you become more comfortable. But like, uh, if what these local governments are doing, what the federal government is doing, if they were doing this and you just transported those people to now, right? And if you could do that, like the Second Amendment, the reason it was installed would have been used. Like it'd be instant, like almost like the next day probably, and you like these people would not tolerate this at all. And there's no cost. See, the thing is today, there's no cost to the government for taking the house for 2 grand and selling it, and then they have to, yeah, they gotta pay some money back, but like, where's the? I mean, I don't even want to, but but there should be a call, like, because we're so like domesticated now, like even as like
Right.
men. That's the one. Oh, go
The
ahead.
low T you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the one thing that that's one of the things about like when people talk about like the Black Beauty or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's misplaced, right? Like the violence and all that stuff again, but they're still like when it comes to being like forced to do stuff, they still say no, and that's the that's like that's one of the positive things is like they're not as easy to rule as um, a lot of other groups, right? And if they were educated, right, like they had a better education, they were more community focused, like they would change the country. Like if they adopted like the Constitution and all that stuff, like instantly overnight, because then like the police would have to behave, governments would have to behave. Like you could just change it because they still have that
Correct.
edge where like
Right.
get off my like I don't give a fuck what you say. Sorry, I don't care what you
Yeah.
say, but
Yeah.
but that's what we lost as everyone
It's
else.
society.
Like we just
Yeah.
comply, which you can't comply because the founders said that if you comply with an unconstitutional law, you legitimize it, right? So any unconstitutional law needs to be ignored, and if you do that against the government, they're going to come with their guns to force you to do it. So unless you push back, or you have enough people to push back, or you push back because it might be the end of your life, but it turns out that if they get enough pushback, even if they win every time, like it becomes the cost of it from an optics or from a like popularity. That's not the word I'm looking for, but from everyone else looking at it and they seeing like, oh, you're taking people's land, oh, you're doing this, and this is causing them to push back. Like I don't like that, right? And it starts bringing attention to it. So like sometimes like there's people in our history that we've been told to look at it as like criminals. I'm not talking about actual criminals, but I'm talking about people who stood up against the government and said no, and then the FBI or whoever comes and kills them. That like we owe, like they were doing what the founders would have told us to
Right.
do, like,
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, and that's the because you can't like even I like now just talking about it, I have to be careful what I say because and it's funny even though it's an enshrined right that we technically have, but if I say the wrong thing, someone's come and knock on my door, even if it wasn't a violent, you know what I mean? Like even if I wasn't saying like, oh, everybody go do this, I'm just talking about it. Like you can get in trouble for that in America. Like that's seems weird. You know what I mean? Like we're always taught about freedom of speech and this and that and the Second Amendment, but if I talk about like people actually who are legitimately pushing back against the government in a positive way, um,
No, not really. You got to think of it. If you read like the Indiana State Constitution, no law shall restrain the inhabitants of the state for assembling. You've got that. What's that one I always talked about? Most people don't understand. Like basically, you're entitled to your opinion.
well, yeah, it says that stuff, but like there's a difference between the words on the Constitution, how they enforce it, and then like
Well,
so,
that's because well
yeah,
that's because these people that we're electing, don't enforce. They don't even know the Constitution themselves.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
no law shall be passed restraining the free interchange of thought and opinion or restricting the right to speak, write, print freely on any subject whatsoever. But it says obviously for the abuse of that right, everybody shall be responsible. Then what
yeah,
they're talking about when the responsible part is, you can't say, hey, I'm gonna kill you, and then
yeah,
you know you and say, well, you're allowed to say that, or I'm gonna
yeah.
go,
You can't do any
blow up the
threats, stuff
building.
like that.
But,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
Obviously not. So, but other than that, you're good to go. And but that's when you go to these, these people who are trying to, keep flock cameras out of their counties and their cities, or people who are going to these, city council meetings that are trying to keep the data centers out, and then they get arrested for going to the podium and saying things, and
yeah,
some police officer comes up behind them and arrests them and kicks them out, and because unfortunately those officers don't understand, they don't know the Constitution. I mean, they probably remember it, but they don't
no,
recall. They
there's
can't say, hey, Article 1 is, the Bill of Rights, or your the rights of the people. Article 2 is,
Yeah,
is, you know.
I mean the average cop does not like. They have to. That's why they have sergeants and stuff. Because normally, like this is what I've seen with my own eyes. Like a lot of the police, they get there and they want to do certain things. The sergeant shows up and they talk it over with the sergeant, and the sergeant's like, "Yeah, we can't really do that." You know, it's
Right,
a
right, yeah, yeah.
so like the
I mean,
average.
they should be able to like say, hey, you know what? But basically, all of Article One is they should be able to know it by heart, you know,
Yeah, I mean
and
they should know
I mean, they should
citizens'
know
rights
some
by heart.
obviously, yeah, and they should know some SCOTUS cases and stuff, and you
Yeah,
know that they should be educating them as some of these stupid laws or whatever these things that come down.
yeah,
Like there was one a couple years ago, police officer. There was a female who was in her car. I mean, she was stupid. She should have got out like he told her to, and then she sped off, and he jumped on her hood, and he
yeah.
jumped on her hood and shot through the windshield and killed her. And the and it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. Gosh, I can't remember what the name of that case was. Did you remember hearing about this?
I do know what you're
And
talking
so
about. Yeah,
yeah, all the way to the circuit court and the district court, and the court of appeals. It all was in favor of the police officer until it made it to the Supreme Court, and they're like, "You put yourself in
yeah.
danger."
You jumped on the hood, like you
You
could
ju-
just.
yeah, you didn't have to jump. No one told you to jump on her hood of her car,
Yeah,
and so you put yourself in danger, which required you to be, to now you've got to shoot her because you've put yourself in danger. She didn't put
yeah,
you in danger. You put yourself there, and then So I mean, obviously, she should have never done that.
yeah. Well,
But
I seen a clip of a podcast. It was a police. So it was a. I don't know if like everyone on the podcast were like old, like were police officers, retired or current, but I think they were retired. But they were talking about how in the old days, if you like talked, if you had said something bad to the police or whatever, that you get beat up and like that, that respect and stuff. They were talking about how like it's bad that that's went away. That because it used to be like if you said something or flicked off a cop, like they would pull you over, beat you up, and you wouldn't do it no more. And I'm like man, these people are tyrants. Like, um, it's crazy. And then yeah, do you know that story? It's from Tennessee about the World War II vets. Where there's a guy there who was corrupt. He was controlling the political because he had the money, and it's basically like a crime syndicate. And the police were on their side as well. It was part of the town, and they would like get people for citations and all this stuff for like liquor and make them pay. And then the World War II vets came home from World War II, and then they would because they knew the soldiers had money, and they would go to the bars and stuff. So they'd wait till they go in, and when they come out, they get them with the tickets, and they put up with that. But then when it came election time, the vets got together and said they told everyone they were gonna run, and that they'll guarantee that it'll be a fair election this time, right? And come election time, the people are the police and uh, we'll just call them
veterans.
the people, the members of the crime syndicate who were running, right, trying to get their people in. They would be at the box making sure that you voted a certain way. They beat up this one black guy, and uh, the vets had said something to him. Like this is just the gist. It may not be exactly what, but said something to the cops, and then instead of like fighting them there, they went back to. They're all at this restaurant. That was like their base for the election or whatever. And the cops came there, and then they beat up the cops and tied them up, and then took their gun. Like, because at that point, it was clear that they were up to their same old stuff where they were forcing people to vote a certain way, and the police took all the ballot boxes and they took it back to the jail, and so that they could count the votes, right? And then the vets were like, "Nope, this ain't happening." So they went to the National Guard base, which it's a small town, so it's like it's not really. When we think of it's just probably like a building with an
Right.
armory.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and the guy there gives them. He opens it up. He gives them the guns and stuff.
Guns and stuff.
Yeah, and they go downtown. They essentially fight a battle with the police where like people got shot. No one, thankfully, no one got killed. It got to the point that they took back the jailhouse. The guy that they wanted to get, he escaped in an ambulance. So he had dressed up as like the ambulance came because they were allowing the ambulance to come and take injured people because they didn't want anyone. They're American, they're still Americans. But um, so but the guy escaped because he dressed up like the ambulance person and left with the ambulance. But eventually they fought. They took back the jailhouse, and they found that they were stuffing the ballot boxes with um, the name. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but like, so there comes a point,
So
like
much corruption.
always, uh, and this is what we lack. That's why some places will always for forever, like we a lot of people just giving up on California or parts of like because there's actually a lot of conservatives in California. It's just the way everything's set up, like it doesn't work out in there. Yeah, it's not fair. But anyways, but that's why some places will always be like considered lost because there's no longer any outlet, and we're always pit against each other. Like the two party system has done an excellent job of just uh, keeping us from being able to even agree like on stuff, and you need both. You have to have both sides in large extent in agreement
So,
on like just the average
yeah, they
stuff.
don't want any. They don't. It's almost like they don't want a remedy or whatever. The problems to be fixed.
Yeah,
So like if you ever go to a a political function, you know, the guest, whoever it is, usually they have some kind of smart comment about the opposition, right? The other
yep,
party, and
yep,
everybody claps, and you're like, well, like, okay,
yeah,
I already know that they're crazy. What's my people doing?
yeah. Like how are
And how
you?
are you moving the football closer to the end zone in my favor?
Yeah,
And that never gets that no one ever talks about that. It's just
yeah,
yeah. That's it. That's what I said. Like a lot of people are just kind of happy with the circus and the bread. Bread and circus.
yep,
We want to be entertained and we want to be fed. And
yep,
if that means nothing gets fixed, and the debt doesn't stop. They don't stop spending debt. The money and or the war keeps on, and
yeah,
people keep dying. Whether it's on our side or their side, who cares? Russia, Ukraine, whatever, or
yeah,
gas prices, groceries go up, I guess so be it, I mean,
yeah,
it's just I just want to be entertained,
yeah.
you know,
And if as
and
long as it's their guy too, like if Biden
yeah,
would have been doing this, like they would have been screaming about it, like oh the gas prices and the war, and then but
right.
then since it's Trump, like our side's just like yeah, they defend it. It drives me.
Right. Yeah, they defend it because I hear, I hear people go, well, at least he had the guts to do it. And
Yeah,
it's like, dude, I mean, the whole problem with the whole thing is, for one, Congress just ran over, right? Article 1 of the Constitution. They just, the War Powers Act. They let them get run over. I mean, we're getting ran over now. I mean, like
yeah.
right now, the
Well,
ones
they're
saying or
cowards, so
stopping it, huh?
I said Congress is cowards, so because like they
Yeah,
have the power to impeach, they have all this stuff. It's a clear violation of the
right.
Constitution.
But
You don't need the War
yeah.
Powers Act. You
But
don't.
again, you've got to, but I always go back to, and myself included, like, what are we, the people, doing? What are what's the people? I mean, we're the ones who are the execute. I say this all the time. We're the ones that are supposed to be executing oversight, but
Yeah.
we're too busy. I'm raising my family. I'm trying to put food on the table. I don't have time to, my representative, they don't listen to what I have to say anyways. They're just going to ignore us.
Yeah.
But I'm like, at some point, we do have the leverage and the influence.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's the thing
again,
with the War Powers Act is it removed our voice. And I think so the War Powers Act they act like they don't like it, but I think they really like it because then it allows us to go to war for a period of time and they can decide whether is this looking good or is this looking bad? Do I want to?
well,
And it keeps
yeah,
Congress from having to put their name to the war.
but it's
Where they
always been that
stand.
way. Yeah, it's always been that way. Like as far as the Wars Power Act of the '70s is total BS. I mean, if your house was getting to get attacked tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the afternoon, Are you going to go to work, or are you going to stay home and defend your property? Right. So, like,
Yeah.
if the United States knew that, hey, our interests or the United States was going to be under attack, I mean, the president doesn't have to ask permission to say, hey, can you wait and not attack us right now? I got to go to Congress and ask for permission before you attack us. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's total, in my opinion. So the War Powers Act was just specifically giving the president, saying, "Hey, look, you don't need our permission if it's something is
No,
imminent."
no, no. That's not. So the War Powers Act, because an imminent threat is not what qualifies the president to be able to act. So like an imminent threat in the sense of where how it's being used here, like oh Iran's got nukes or this or that. Like that's not what that is. When the
Correct.
president does have powers is when they're actually attacking. So like if they're attacking a state or a province, then he can
Right.
act without
Correct.
any. But he can only
Yeah,
go
and
as
that's what
far.
I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
but he can
Yeah.
only push back as soon as they're out of the
Right.
province. As soon as that is done, he
Right.
loses the Washington, Jefferson, John Adams, uh, uh, James Madison. They all said
Yep.
the same thing and did the same thing. Like, um, so, like this imminent threat of like going and bombing another country, that does not qualify for the president to be able to what he can do.
Correct. Yep.
Um,
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. I
so
agree. Yep.
but Congress, the soul, like when you the more you go back and read, like the more I read what they wrote, the more angry I get, and the more I realize that people don't read the sources because Congress. So any action, so bombing, whatever, all that is declared. That's under the declare war clause. People will say, "Well, we
Correct.
didn't declare a war. We're not fighting a war." Like, no, the definition it says that any act by a sovereign, against another country that is like bombing, firing a single bullet, all of that is under the declared war. So the president has in no sense, any sense that he can go and bomb the other country or do what he's doing now. Like that is a blatant violation of. Uh,
Right. Yeah, he has to get Congress's approval, whether
yeah,
people like it or not.
yeah, and that's
Whether they feel
yeah,
that what we're doing is just or not. I mean,
yeah, and
it's
well,
like,
so if they think it's a just war, so like it can be a just war, and that's one of the, I mean I did that in my last video. Like there's a just war, an unjust war, um, and then then there's unlawful war. An unlawful war is when we attack someone for their resources. Uh, 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 I guess that'd be an unjust war, but a just war is when someone attacks or when someone violates one of our rights or interests. You know what I mean? And we decide, all right, well, we're willing to go to war over this, right? And then there's a defensive war. That's the third one. This is the defensive war, which we talked about. And the founders, so like it can be a just war, but it's unconstitutional unless you get Congress to vote on it, right? And then an unjust war is never constitutional. That's never approved. But but the thing is that like when they bypass Congress and Congress doesn't have to vote, it's like the congressmen like it, or they love it because they don't have to put their name behind stuff. But like, because if they actually
yeah,
had to put their name behind invading Iran, like who approved of it, who was not, like I guarantee you, most of those people would not be in Congress um, the next time around. And that's the especially with as bad as it's going so far. Um, but and it takes away the voice of the people. We have no say in this, and that's part of the point of Congress is that like we even though
mhm,
it can be hard to interact with your Washington representative, right? But you still can interact with them. You can still interact with your governor and other people who have influence over that. But if you take that whole thing away, and it's just one man making the decision in his for whatever his benefit or for fame or for whatever, um, like the people no longer have a say.
right.
So
Well, happy. It says so. Saint George Tucker, the guy I read that book of his, it says, "Happy is the nation where the people are the arbiters of their own interest and their own conduct." You know, and it's
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. Going to war. And he says that war would be banished from the face of the earth, where nations instead of princesses to decide upon their necessity. It says injustice can never be the collective sentiment of the people merged from barbarism. And so, yeah,
Yeah. Yep. And
it's
that's
so amazing that
yep.
all this crap that's happening in the world, at least in the United States. If we just went back and read the Constitution, read some of the founding, it's I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, dude, our problems would be fixed if we just would pay attention to our past and
Yeah.
follow the blueprint that these men, you know,
Right. Like the
laid out
standing
for us.
army, like the Navy, we need. Navy is a must. You have to have a navy as a nation, right? But like the standing army, because the reason they knew you had to have some kind of standing army, like, but that's but
Yeah, the militia.
yeah, but the militia, well, the reason there's reasons for it other than like people will say, well, the militia isn't very well trained and stuff like that, or but the reason is that you don't have a standing army is because for all right, so one, they want the militia, everyone in the militia, if you have a militia, when you organize a federal, like when the army calls them up and starts to train them, everyone, they're sergeants, they're, the whole command structure
Yep,
is
yep.
people they know that live in their that are from where they live. So
The
if they do,
communities.
like, unlike in the federal government where like you don't know that person can treat everybody horrible and they have no consequences because after that they're not going to see them again. Well, you know this encourages the command structure to treat the soldiers and not make dumb decisions where they get everybody killed on purpose, for glory, right? Because they have to go back and they face the wives and the brothers, and like they have to live in that community when they go back, and so they're going to pay for being, yeah, the stuff that they don't pay for now. Like it's there's a bunch of it. Like I've been reading like the standing armies, war powers, like, and then the more you read, the more you're like, oh my god, like that makes so much sense. And then how a standing army will embolden the government to, because they're our military are considered mercenaries, like our like the full time military. They're the founders would consider them mercenaries, so they're not, and they spoke very bad of like uh, mercenaries because of um, where they come from, or, mercenaries. Back in the day when the government would hire mercenaries, it'd be uh, normally because they want to oppress the people. So they would take guns from the people, hire mercenaries to fight their wars and stuff, and then they would use the mercenaries to enforce their will over the people. So the founders had a, like, when you go back and you start reading and you realize the world that we're in now versus the world that they lived in and we're thinking of, even though they didn't, like some of the founders when they got in office, they did unconstitutional stuff, uh, but like you still had that check where, like, Washington, I think during his term, when they were implementing a tax, and then what was it? I forget where, but they formed an army. Like citizens formed an army, and Washington had them march down to meet them. And luckily, they gave up, and then they pardoned the guys that did it. But um, you had people were more like you said, they were more aware. They're more account. They held the government accountable,
Right.
and
Well, that's why you hear all those sayings all the time that it's, I never really clicked, in my younger years where they always said that, democracy or whatever, this republic is only one generation away from being lost. And that's what they mean by that is we got to remember these things that we were taught that, or that we haven't been taught, but we've been teaching ourselves, yourself and me and
yeah,
others, about going back in time, reading the words that they wrote and the books that they've written, and realize how far we've, or kind of the apple has fallen
oh,
from the
it's gone.
tree. Yeah,
That,
yeah.
like, we're
That's
living
why I
in a,
said, like, the
yeah,
where is the we the people anymore? Like, does it even exist? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, people have, we've got a society right now, and it's slipping. And obviously, it's easy to see because, I mean, you're getting flock cameras. I mean, it's only bad when China does it, I guess, right? When we
Yeah.
put out, when we're doing mass surveillance on our own people, it's okay,
Yeah.
all this crap that they're putting in, people complain about in their food, or you're, I can conceal carry my firearm in the state of Indiana, but I need to go to Illinois or go to Chicago. Well, I can't carry it there. I've got to lock it up in a separate box, and the ammo's got to go
Yeah.
separate. I mean, I'm like, holy cow, like who the? And now we're paying property taxes, and then that just keeps going up, and then we have these wars that are going on that aren't voted on essentially by the people because through the representatives, and so we're like, yeah, sure, I'm willing to pay $5 a gallon gas now. And
Yeah.
by the way, while I'm at it, I'll pay more for groceries and everything else because it's everything that's brought to the grocery stores brought on diesel truck,
Yeah.
and so it
Yeah.
goes up, so groceries go up. I mean, just like on and on and on and on. I mean, just everybody just we don't know our rights anymore. We don't. We get ran over. We think that we're subjects of government and not governments are a subject of us. So
Yeah.
the roles have totally reversed. And I guess when seems like when we like for me for my county, 22% of the county for Kosciuszko County voted in the last primary. So
Yeah.
78% of the registered voters didn't vote. So 22% voted for the 78%. I mean, like, and you
Yeah.
had 30 days of early voting. And
But
I'm like, so what happened to the 78% that didn't vote? I mean, you don't sit here and tell me that you're unhappy with the wheel tax being implemented in the county and that your property taxes are rising and that, the library needs $17 million and, they're going to do a $30 million bond for renovations, and you're going to have to pay more in taxes and complain about
yeah.
all these things, but you didn't go to you had 30 days to vote, but you didn't have time to vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Well, I
like,
think the
man, what is
founders
this?
were onto it when they said that you had to own, at
Yes.
least have private land or something to be able to vote. Which, and then everybody talks about, well, you're trying to stop people. Like, well, if the majority of them aren't voting, and there's only a small percentage of people voting, it's not going to affect like people's rights very much. Like if you just have to have a stake in the game. If you're renting or you don't own nothing like that, like you don't really have a stake in the game. So like government paying your rent is you're looking for stuff like that. But if you own your own house and you're like, well, property taxes are going up so that I could pay other people's rent, then you're kind of like, yeah,
Right.
you're gonna
Yeah.
vote.
Yep. Yep. I don't know why that it doesn't go out that way, but that's how it is, man. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the world that we're living in, and I don't know if we're gonna get better or not. I don't know. It's we
it,
keep electing the same people who are giving us the same government we're trying to get away from, and I just don't understand. I mean, nobody's happy, but when it comes down to it, which is really difficult, is you look at these people that were elected over and over and over again, and then say a guy like you or me or whoever, like a blue collar person who looks, lives, and sounds like the people of their community. We
yeah,
don't elect that. We still, for some odd reason, we still don't trust that person. We still trust the person who's raising your taxes and taking your kids in further in debt and your grandkids further in debt and taking the country into a direction where everything costs more, the dollar is devaluing, your liberties being hindered. It's
yeah.
I don't understand it, but I believe what the mindset of most of the public is that it's not my rep, it's the one in the next county over that's doing that, or
Normalcy,
it's the one
like
in the next state over. It's not
normalcy.
my rep. My rep's doing the right thing.
No, it's normal. Like even I've talked about this before. Like when during COVID we had a chance to elect, it was rainwater, and like every conservative I talked to, like they would say, I really want to vote for rainwater because he was anti lockdown, all that stuff, Liberty in that time, and then Braun was. lockdown, all that, and so uh, they're like, oh, I want to vote for him, but we're not going to because I don't want to split the vote. Like, oh, we want to win and whatever. And I was like, well, if everyone who keeps telling me they like what Rainwater is saying, if y'all just voted for, you don't have to worry about splitting the vote. Like, he'll get elected. Um, but since they're like, oh, well, in their mind, it's like, well, I'm afraid, like, it's normalcy. Like, oh, well, this is what I know will win, so I'll vote. Like, people are programmed that way. And you have to, like, the only time, like, this is why this is the perfect time um, for, like, an actual third party to be created in Indiana. Like, I know there's already other parties, like, you have the Libertarian Party, but, like, most people don't identify with the Libertarian Party because, like, the part that people like about the Republican Party is that they do affirm God in there, at least in word, right? Um, like and then there are certain principles, like we do stand against abortion. It's not just, they should have the right to, we do stand against abortion. And so, like, now is the time to actually create a third party that actually stands for Constitution, and because people's the prices and stuff, it starts, like, when you have that stress, it starts to shake people's like they now are willing to take that bet, right, on this unknown person, or this person who knows what they're going through, right, and because they want relief, and so because now you can vote Republican and they'll still raise your electrical costs, all that stuff. They'll vote,
Right? Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's what they told me if I vote Democrats was going to happen, and so, like, now I'm in this position where, like, the Republicans are just a slower decay than the Democrats. Like, it'll be much faster with the Democrats. It'll be just a little slower with the Republicans. But either way, I'm going to end up paying. Um,
Well, yeah. Well, like right now, are we elect? It just appears to me that we're electing people to manage the downfall of a once great nation instead of electing people to fix the problems that we have. So we're just like, hey, look, we know that there is no coming back from what's going on. So why don't you just manage it the best you can, and we'll keep declining, and we'll just do the best you can though. And I'm like, that's what the candidates that we're getting. We're like, we need to get away from those candidates who are just like fall in line and snap to attention and do whatever the
yeah,
system is taking us down the train track. Like, we need to get some people, and there's people like you and me are out there. It's just getting people to vote for us. Like, hey, look, we're not weak
well,
minded. We're not. We don't want to manage the downfall of a once great nation. We want to manage the country and get it back to our glory, and get it back to where the people are in control of our own destiny. That's what the whole point of self government is. I
yeah,
mean,
but
like, you get that, but
yeah,
like, the people say self government. What does that mean? That means, like,
yeah,
we're not subject of government. Government is subject of us. They do what we want.
yeah. Well, I mean, and self government as well is taking so the problem
you
is
know,
that most people want to be slaves. They want to be comfortable slaves, and with the least amount of, then
yeah,
they'll accept some inconvenience with that. But,
yeah. They
like,
won't change while staying comfortable. That's the
yeah,
words I always.
well, that's the thing. So, like, when you talk about self governance, if you talk about property taxes and you're like, oh well, it's unjust because you don't really own your property, and when someone's like, well, I like the streets, I appreciate, and then most of the schools and stuff are from property taxes. So they're pretty much saying, like, I like the ease I get from treading on other people's rights, and that, to me, it's worth it. Kind of like Donald Trump's tweet when it was for the FISA thing, and he was like, I'm willing to give up, some of my personal rights and privileges for the fine men and women in the military to be able to do their job. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, basically saying, like, he's willing to give up his rights to the federal government so that they can spy on him, right? Then, I mean, he said that to convince
Yeah,
others to
who's the freaking founding father that said that was anyone who gives
Benjamin
up
Franklin.
Franklin or whatever? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He
yeah.
said anyone who's willing to give up
liberty or
central liberty
something.
for a little security or something like
Or
that. Something along those
gets
lines.
neither. Gets neither.
Yeah. And
Yeah. Dear
but
God. I
people
mean,
don't want to
there.
do the work. Oh, sorry. What do you say?
No, yeah, you're good. No, I'm saying, like, and there you go. Yet again, we just go back in time. We look at the wisdom of the founding fathers, of the people in that era. You know, we
Yeah.
read our constitutions. You know, and we let people who understand those and follow them, and and our problems start going. The pendulum swings the other direction.
Yeah.
Where we start for everybody, regardless of what political party you identify as, I mean, because I'm telling you what, if you're a Democrat, and I'm a Republican, and I'm going to stop property taxes, and because I feel, at least for public people for private use, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for your private home, and I'm like, you happen to be a recipient of not paying property taxes, I think you're going to be pretty happy as a
Yeah.
Democrat. You know what I mean? You're not like, oh, I hate that Republican. He took away my property taxes. Now I'm getting an
Well,
extra $2,000, $4,000 a year,
it's not
in
them
my
they
my
think
bank
of though.
account.
It's always the rich. So like for the Democrats and a lot of people, when you talk about property taxes, in their mind they're thinking of some rich guy. They don't actually realize that it's the average homeowner.
Right.
Everyone pays property taxes. So
Taxes.
they're like, oh yeah, I can't let some rich guy with this big house not pay and like, well, you don't understand that like it's actually you. Like
Yeah.
if you own property, and that's the problem is a
Yeah.
lot of people don't own property. So to them, it's not. Well, they're still paying
Right.
it. They don't realize it when their rent
Right.
goes up and stuff. They're
Yes.
paying the property tax. So like, if you want stuff to come down, we need to get rid of property taxes, and then we want the government to have less money because then as you start to cut these avenues of taxes and it starts to shrink, they'll actually start having to spend the money on the things that they're supposed to. But when they have excess like this, they have all these other things that they're going to waste the money on. But if you force them to start budgeting and actually spend it on the things that because then when you have less money, it becomes more noticeable when you start taking it and using it for stuff it's not to, or if you're corrupt. Corruption is more noticeable when you have less to account for. So
Right.
they'll
Right.
actually your roads will be fixed. But
Yeah. People in government, they should all ask themselves three things. One is what they want. Whatever it is that they want. I mean,
yeah,
is it constitutional? Number two, can we afford what we want? And number three is, do we need it? I mean, do we really
yeah.
need this? And
And,
so, constitutional, can you afford it? And do you need it?
but as a citizen, what you should be asking yourself is like, how can I help my neighborhood? Like, if you got a pothole in your neighborhood, fill that. If you see, if you're, and then this is how it should be. Like, if there's a pothole, like if you say you live on the street and or a street that's busy, you got a pothole out there. The city has taken forever. I mean, they take forever to fill this stuff. Like, and you know how to do it, just fill it. And it should be a thing where you don't get in trouble. You just got to do it properly. As long as you do it properly, like and people like instead of like where's the city, it should be like we need to start
Right.
because that's what self governance is. You can't have
Right.
self governance unless you have responsibility,
Yep.
personal responsibility as well. So like we talk about individuals, but one of the things that we miss is that yeah, there's individuals, but they have different talents and stuff, and then that is like that's what's used as a community to better the community and
Right.
um,
Let's take an ownership of your community. You know.
yeah, and so like the it's the self part that people don't want to take responsibility. They like having somebody else do it, so they pay for it. When you give away responsibility, you give away freedom. They're tied together, and it's inextricably. But we're not taught that in school. Like no one thinks about that. We're taught that you pay taxes so you can have good roads, but you pay in actuality you pay taxes so they can come up with some scheme on how to you know spend your money on some private project or where the like I assume that some of these people are getting kickbacks somehow from these projects or like personally are making money. The way that the city is insistent on flock cameras, like that doesn't make sense to me. Um, like what do they have to gain? You know what I mean? Like the city council, everyone voted no, and they're like, well, we're gonna postpone this and see. Maybe we can get more people in here. Are you gonna put people in there to say yes now? Now that you know that the majority of citizens, is this even really a choice?
Yeah, I think that the only thing that with the flock I can comprehend in my brain is, I mean, because I don't think people are getting arrested, are they? It's just like, hey, I don't know, like, hey, you were here, you created a violation. Here's your ticket. Pay your ticket. I mean, it's just a revenue stream for the county or the city. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
Well,
And
there's that, but the
we're like,
people.
we're funding, and like, hey, we're funding it. I mean, like,
Yeah.
hey, can you monitor me, please? And see what I'm doing and make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, just at least
Yeah.
the people are taking a stand. And I tell you what, this is one thing Republicans and Democrats and Independents can all agree on is the flock cameras have got to go. And I
Yeah.
think I actually believe, at least for where I live, that it's going to come to a head that nobody wants them.
Yeah.
And again, like I said earlier, it's like it's only bad when China does it. When China is putting flock cameras and doing facial recognition and all that, it's bad. But
Yeah.
when we do it, it's all for the public good. No
That's
worries
what.
here. And then we pay for it, right? We're like,
Yeah.
where's my taxes going? Hey, we need more money from you, your family, my family, so we could buy like 30 more flock cameras.
Yeah. That's
Thank
crazy.
you. It's like,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's your
like.
own people doing it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not for me.
Yeah.
It's like it's my own team. It's I'm like I
And we can't.
yeah
It's Indiana. Like, to me, growing up, one thing I loved about Indiana's spirit is the freedom aspect of it. Like, it's always. I mean, we got red flag laws now, but not even now. Everybody's like, those got to go.
right.
But like this, and then having like I used to, because I drove a lot. I drive through other places where you have toll roads and they got stoplight cameras and all this stuff, right? Or speed cameras in Ohio as you go, and then they send you the ticket in the mail. But then there's like they can't see your face or know who's driving, so you can fight it. And it's because like I had a route and that we had a company van, and so like it wouldn't even always be like one of
Right. The
us
same
in
driver.
the yeah. So and then I would get the ticket with my name on it because it was a company van, but we hadn't had it. It wasn't the van itself wasn't in the company yet. Like we had bought it. We had to buy it like last minute because we had to get the route. Like the way it worked is I think it was a Red Cross route at the time. This is way back. So like we either had to get the van like that week, or we missed out on the route, which paid like it was like $4,000 for. We just went to Pennsylvania. You just took Pennsylvania once a day. It was 7 days a week, um, but like it was really good money for at that time. This is before COVID, so it's way. So it was good money. But $4,000 a week. It
Yeah.
was yeah. But but yeah, we'd have someone in it, and they go through, like get the ticket, and they sent it and be like one of us. It's like we weren't even in the van, so. Uh, but that's one thing I liked about Indiana is we didn't really have that. We don't have that stuff. Like the cop has to catch you, and like yeah, speed. The people are like oh well, speeding and stuff like that. But everybody speeds. Like maybe not everybody, but 90% of people. Like you're late for work, and you go maybe instead of going 5 over, you go 6 or 7. Those flock cameras would get you for that. Right, like for that moment, or you're just driving, and we all do that moment where we kind of like, you're driving, you're just staring at the road, and then you look down, and you're going like it's the speed limit's 50, and maybe you're going like 65, and then you slow down, right? Well, if the
Right. Oh
camera's
yeah.
there, even though you corrected yourself, it doesn't make a difference. You can't argue with the camera. You can't argue with the police. You know what I mean? Like, oh hey, I'm sorry. Like I was driving, and you know how like you're going, you're staring off in the distance, and I look down, and I'm speeding, and the cop's like, oh all right, I understand. I mean, if you get a cool cop, but yeah, but you can't argue with the cop. Like, it just
Right.
comes in the
Oh, you
mail, and
gotta
now you
have
got to go to court.
those flock cameras. One thing I never understood is, and I got to close up here, but
Yep.
like they have to, the Constitution says that they have to, if you commit a crime, then somebody has to swear under penalty of perjury that you committed the crime, right? So, like,
Yeah.
how does a camera swear under penalty of perjury in a court of record that I was speeding? They
Yeah.
can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
It's
uh,
unconstitutional. Yeah. Yeah,
But
I agree.
again, we got a whole generations plural. Mine, your, my kids is, I'm trying to teach them, and then my grandparents, they don't know, it's all, this is all forgotten. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the generation before us. So like my dad's generation, and like they were, like, I hate to. There's no other way to put it, but like whether Democrat or Republican, because I'm working, I talk to like older Democrats and stuff like they were government cucks. Like the even in like the World War II generation, like they had such a trust in the government and the president and the way they talk about
Right.
the
Right.
like, and those were some of those some of those times where we lost some of where the we lost some a lot of liberty in those times from the
Dude,
government.
tell me about it, man. I know.
Yeah,
I gotta bite my tongue talking about that stuff at that time because I'm like, oh my gosh, man. You know,
yeah,
I'm like, no offense, but like our grandparents are the ones that are like, yeah, I'm cool with property taxes. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, just for a little while, income tax, sure. Yeah, we understand. Government needs to, needs to
yeah,
pay for this debt, and I'm patriotic, and I want to help the government, and I don't want my country to, to go bankrupt. So yeah, I'm willing to pay for property taxes. I'm willing to pay for, you know,
yeah,
income taxes for a while, and then
yeah.
next thing you know, here we are, 100 years later. We're like,
Yeah.
holy crap, man.
It's
We're
their fault
still,
that we're here. Like I
yeah,
every time I talk to like a Trumper
it
or
is.
an old Democrat and they argue with me about the time, I'm like, the way the country is your fault. It was under your watch. You left your kids to government employees for the majority of the like. You're at
Yeah.
work. Your wife's at work. They're not raising them. Like you left them to the school to be raised by government employees. Like I mean, they're not, but it's public school, so that they are
Yeah,
eh,
yeah,
like
yeah.
not your
Mm.
values. They clearly
And who
didn't.
knows what the hell they're teaching them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So like
It's
the
just,
reason we're here is it's
and then then our generation, then my mom and dad's generation were, that's how they raised their us, yeah.
yeah.
And then yeah, I mean,
And
it's a cycle, man.
and how are they shocked when there's pink hair, like the gate, like all this was like this all this was predictable. Like and I read about the Frankfurt school and like all this stuff, and then you start to see it in the schools and how it was happening. And like you guys weren't paying attention. You guys slept fell asleep at the wheel, and like I feel like it's my job. So like when I'm older, I don't want to be able to say like I don't want anyone to be able to say, oh well, like it's your fault. I'm like, no, like I'm gonna fight as hard as I can to restore it, even if it kills me. And then
Correct.
that way, if I'm old in a wheelchair and the country's declining, and someone's like, well, you're like, no, like this is not on me. Like I did everything I could. Like
Right.
it might have been your parents, but it wasn't me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
All right, man.
yep. You take it. Thanks for coming on. You have to come on soon again.
Yeah, we need a. Well, one of these days, where do you live at in Fort Wayne?
Uh,
What?
wow.
So you don't have to give me your address. I'm just like, you live on the east, north side, south,
Oh,
what side of town?
kind of north. Like
Okay.
let's see.
Well, I'm over at Cascasco County, so you know where I'm at. I'm over by the high school. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever come this way any, but we need to link up sometime. At
Hold
least
on.
I could kind of.
Hold on, really quick. Like all right, we're gonna end this here, and
Yeah.
yeah. Let's see. Just